Welcome, 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 my power sisters, to another episode of, or another session of Power Her Success. I am your host, Dr. Anita Jackson. I am so excited to continue to bring to you all these amazing women who have said yes to being an author in our book, Power Her Success, which is coming out September the 27th, where you're going to get really some phenomenal information on how to get into your power in different areas of your life. This has been my passion. This has been our passion, our desire to help you get back to the truth of who you are, and that's being a powerful woman. So today, I'm so excited to introduce to you someone that I absolutely love, whose brain matches mine, who's all the way in the Bermudas. I always say the Bahamas, but she's in Bermuda. Yeah, all right. See, I got myself confused. She's in Bermuda, and just a beautiful sister, a beautiful friend, a powerful leader, and just someone I absolutely adore. This is Deanna Durham. She's also our executive director for human resources and sales as a part of the Power Her Success Alliance. Guys, that's a tongue twister right there. And it has been truly a joy working with her over the past year as we are building these powerful seminars for corporations and helping the women in there access their power just as well. So Deanna, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and spending just a few minutes with me as we have a conversation on what it means for a woman to be powerful.
Thank you.
Love it. So I guess the first thing I want to say is tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Kind of introduce yourself to us.
Okay, so my background, I'm Deanna Durham. I'm, as you said, from Bermuda, little small island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And I spent a number of years in corporate. That's pretty much where I spent all of my career. In the financial industry, so banking, investments, insurance. And then after leaving that industry, I took some time to take care of family, look after my parents. And then once they had passed, I decided I didn't want to go back into corporate, and I wanted to take the information and knowledge that I had gained through all those years and help individuals, organizations to be able to be better and be better places to work for their employees and individuals that, their clients. So that's what I do.
So I think Deanna is kind of underselling herself. She's brilliant. She has a very humble heart, but the woman is very knowledgeable when it comes to everything dealing with human resources. She really knows herself when it comes to money and wealth and abundance, and just has this profound way of really hearing someone and seeing someone and getting to the root and pulling out their brilliance and their genius and helping them move to the next level. I don't know if she sees that in her, but that's definitely what I see from her. And I think what our whole team, we've got about 30 people on our team. Actually, that's changed, it's 32 now. People on our team, and now we have a whole men's division that's being added on, and she is usually my number one go-to. Poor thing, I know you didn't expect that to happen, but that's because you show up brilliantly and you're so powerful, and you actually match my brain so that now I can give you more and more opportunities to move forward, just to be working together. So I absolutely love powerful women like her. So Deanna, my question to you today, as we're talking about what it means for a woman to be powerful, is what is power and why is it necessary for a woman to have it?
Well, to me, power is the ability to do something, but in a very mindful way.
Yeah.
So it is that you have determined how you want to accomplish it and what you want to accomplish. And I think it's important for women to have, because sometimes we can get so caught up in everybody else that we
Yes.
forget to focus on ourselves. And whatever it is we choose to do, whether it be business, whether it be family, whether it be self-care, but we need to include all those things. So we have to, I think the mindfulness is a very important part of power.
Yeah, we're finding that across the board, almost, I'm sure all of you ladies have sensed this and seen this and heard this as well, that every single one of our experts within the book, our authors within the book, has said pretty much the same thing. It's all about you making a decision to own this as your own truth, that I am a powerful woman and I get to use my power in a way that changes my life, my family, my community, and the world. And if there's ever a time for women to be powerful, now's the time to do it. So that's my next question. Why is now so crucial for women to step into power, especially what's been happening in 2022, or just through this whole entire pandemic?
Right. And I think it's important now because I believe we have seen how at risk our lifestyles and our families are. You
Yeah,
know, we have been very comfortable. We could work when we wanted, we could get money when we wanted, but we're now in a position where it's a lot of uncertainty. It had been uncertain for, I would say, since about 2009
right.
because of
I
the
understand.
financial crisis. And I'm speaking from a financial perspective, and but it's gotten less secure
Yes.
after COVID. So I think, you know, it's never too late to start. And it's important we start now because there will be changes going on in the future that we need to prepare ourselves
Yeah.
for. And I think people are now aware that they didn't like the uncertainty and not and realizing that they maybe have been closer to one paycheck away from,
Yeah.
you know, having a financial crisis in their life. So
Absolutely. And I also think too, a lot of people are waking up to realizing that they've been living their life on autopilot, that they've been actually living their life for someone else or something else and not really living life to the fullest way they want to. So they're making different decisions now that they didn't, I guess, acknowledge before or realize. I know that was one of my things is sometimes you can get caught up in what you're doing because you love what you're doing. So you don't think it's really not what you need for your life. You just go, I love it, so I do it. And then you get to a point where I remember the day, I think it was 45 years old. I just met with my doctor, and my doctor had just basically given me some really bad news. And it hit me that my life is now going to go in a completely different direction than I thought it was going to go. And what do you do from there? So I think COVID did the same thing. It kind of wakes you up and you realize you've been on this treadmill doing the same thing over and over again. And now it's gone. Like my whole entire business imploded, if you will. It kind of like whoop, fell apart because I had literally gotten most of my clients through speaking. Like I would go to speaking engagements and that's how I got clients. I had speaking engagements for the first 6 months of 2020, already locked in, contracts had been signed. And then all of a sudden it was gone, like absolutely 100% gone. And I had to reevaluate how I really had designed my business. And what I realized is I was doing a lot, but all of these things weren't creating ongoing income. So I was that one client away from something going bad, which it did. And I had to regroup and restructure. And that's really how the Alliance came forward. And now it's creating, the goal is to create as multiple streams of income as possible. So that if one is slow, there are these other streams that can make up for it along the way. And it's not easy and it's not hard. You just have to be, like you said, mindful and intentional. Which is what I love about your chapter, is your chapter is on mastering power in your finances. Let's talk about, because this one, especially now, I think is a really deep conversation, and we could probably go on for hours, but in the short time frame that we've got, let's talk about why should women really master their power in their finances? Why, and how?
well, now is the time because there's even though things may seem difficult, there's actually a lot of opportunity out there.
I think
You
so
can
too.
see that the world is shifting, the workforce is shifting, and whenever there's a shift, there's also a lot of opportunity. There's
Right.
some loss, but there's actually more opportunity than there is loss.
Let's
So
sit with
I
that for just a minute, because this is what our conversation, before we even got here, we were talking about this before. And what you just said, I think, is a hashtag moment. In the midst of something difficult or challenging, there are probably more opportunities now than there were before. And that's where you get to see things from a different light. And I really try to encourage women more often than not to say, this is the perfect opportunity for things to change. Which is why I don't think I panicked when everything happened, because my first thought was, oh, good, I get to do something different. What am I gonna do? And this is where corporations kicked in. But to continue, please go ahead.
yeah.
I just thought that was a
So
powerful key moment to bring forward.
yeah, so I think and it's a lot of people are doing a lot of self-evaluation. I think what happened is basically we were on the treadmill, life was moving along, the bills were getting paid, you know, children's education was being looked after, children were going to school, we just were on the treadmill.
Yeah.
If you had really sat back and observed people, and having been in HR, people weren't happy, but they were just doing it.
Right.
And I think that today people are now saying, I want to do something I like. Life's too short.
Life's too
We've
short.
all seen, if we weren't directly if affected by a loss, we lost a colleague, we lost a friend, lost a parent. We
Yes.
know somebody that's been through a lot of loss, and the news just shows you lots of d- difficult and depressing information. So people are now saying, what is important to me? What do I want to do? What
Yes.
do I like to do? And but one of the reasons they haven't jumped off and done it is because they can't afford it financially. And that is where the
Absolutely.
power of your finances comes in. If you do the things that we're discussing, and we propose that people do and set that plan in action, you will then build financial security, independence, and peace to allow you to take on a risk, so to speak, of something that you would like to do. And I think we all just need to realize, when you talk about multiple streams of income, because you mentioned it, there's a
Yeah.
lot online. I don't think we've all really realized. Eventually, everybody will have some type of job online.
Yeah. So true.
That even during this difficult time, the part of the industry that didn't suffer and grew, there were more millionaires and billionaires built
Right.
through online opportunities.
So true.
And so people need to realize, because they think, well, what could I do? What will people want from me? We have to realize that everybody has something that somebody else is willing to pay for.
That's so true. I
And you
agree.
have some level of information. You know, you could compare yourself to an Anthony Robbins, but it might be that you just mastered. Not everybody wants Anthony Robbins or could afford him, but
Yeah.
there might be somebody out there that's looking at, how do you homeschool your children? Just how do you handle work-life balance when you are that sandwich generation? Whatever experience that you are really going through, you have mastered it, and somebody else would appreciate that information. So that's
So
kind of a
true.
little sidebar there,
But
but
it's a good
it,
sidebar.
it's to help us and women, because we do so much for everybody else, have
Yeah.
so much information
Yes.
that we can figure out what part of it could make me, even if it's a side hustle, but it be another form of income, to help get you to the place that you have a secure and stable foundation to your finance.
Now here, this is interesting because, and I love this topic, and it's probably one we need to have multiple, like breaking it into pieces and have multiple conversations on it, because there's also the psychology and the energy and the frequency and the vibration all around money. And with what's been going on in the world, it feels like, from what I can see with women around me and even my own experience, to be transparent, there's this wobbly effect. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like it's not secure, quote unquote, yet as it was before, because I think people are rethinking what they really, because that's what I think, I'm not going to even say I think, I know. That's what COVID did for me. It helped me really look at what my money belief system was, and how I valued money, how I handled money, how I respected money. It really brought that forward. And in my mind, it was just a tool. It didn't have any more meaning or power or purpose other than to pay a bill, and that was it. And maybe give me a vacation, maybe help me have some nice clothes and get my hair done, get my nails done, because that was something I did on a regular, or get a massage, but it had nothing else. What about that aspect of people who are, yes, they need to master their money, but they haven't dealt with their internal psychological energy around money?
And you will not succeed unless you deal with it.
Unless you do.
After
Good
from
point.
20 years of providing courses and watching people go through their cycles as they get information. And I describe it as, I used to see this common denominator, that people would hear the foundation and say, I could do that, and start doing it. And within about 3 weeks,
Uh-huh.
they would, you could see the light dimmer in the eyes. It literally, you
true.
could see the belief disappear. And because the belief disappeared, they didn't fully accomplish. And it was a 12-week program we were doing. At the end of the 12 weeks, they didn't accomplish what they should have.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with how much money people made. It had nothing to do with the bills or how much debt they had. It had to do with their belief on whether or not they could accomplish it. And that was the consistent thing. The people in the group that you thought they don't have enough money to get rid of a lot of this debt figured out ways to get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was because they believed they could. The people who had the money to take care of what they needed to take care of, when they lacked the belief, then the rest followed. And so they ended up just a little better than they were.
And I think what happens is we don't really, I call it the gap. There's this moment where you know you need to make some changes. You try to make an effort to make those changes, but because there's a gap between where you are and where you want to be, this other side being you are completely financially secure and stable and you've got enough money to do and be and have what you want to have. There's a gap between that space. And 9 times out of 10, it's really not that big. It's really small. But what happens is because that belief starts to dissipate or your energy and frequency and vibration starts to lower, if you want to use those terms, that gap gets wider and wider and wider and wider. So I'm like, it's really the opposite. You think it's really far apart and it's actually not, because the moment you make that decision, I think that that space for it to come in is really small. But we get into this mindset, that cycle, that vicious cycle. It took me years to see that. And when I finally saw it, I'm like, wait a second. There are moments when I needed something and my belief was so high, it manifested quickly. Usually like with either, if it's not within a couple of hours, at least within a couple of days. And that's when I just like, okay, it's done. I don't have to worry about it. And then it would show up. And then where I would like need more money and I get to that gap and I start to panic because the due date's here, I can feel it's getting wider and wider. And now I'm aware of it enough to go, oh wait, I feel that shift kicking in. I feel me moving towards the side of not believing. So what are the tools? What are my practical tools? Like actually looking at my finances, actually looking at where money is going, seeing what bills need to be paid off, or in finding, that was the beautiful thing. Gosh, I have less bills than I thought because I've done so much work to pay them off. So that felt really good. Like, wow, I've actually been doing a lot better than I give myself credit for. So we as women don't celebrate ourselves. And then the flip side was, am I making smart decisions? Because that's the other piece. I think a lot of women, just like you said earlier, just don't know where to take money that allows it to grow for them. They just take the money and pay a bill and spend it on expense and not put it, and that's what was, and it used to drive me crazy. I have a financial CPA, he's brilliant. And his one phrase when I was working full time, he'd been with me for years, and said, Anita, you make great money, but you don't know, you have nothing to show for it. And I really didn't get it until COVID kicked in. And now I go back and like, I totally know what you mean. This makes so much sense to have great money and not use it wisely.
So there's mindset. That's one of the big impacts, because that may limit how far we go.
Right.
You know,
I what we're able to receive too.
Of a person that said, I never get past X amount. I can get there, I can save. And then once I hit that, the next thing I know, I'm back to where I started.
That was
and that's because they had a belief system around that particular number. There was something subconscious, not conscious. They don't even realize it happens. And that happens, you know. So that's one part of it. But
you know, let's sit there, because I think that's where a lot of people are right now. When I realized that that was my issue, that I had passed my mom and then realized I couldn't pass her anymore. Something in me said I couldn't do it. And I ended up staying at a certain point. Although I was making good money, I passed my mom where she was at, and she had made, at that time, she had made really good money for herself. I passed it. And then when I got to the next level, I messages, I didn't even see it at the time. I can see it because hindsight gives you 2020. That years later, I realized that I was hearing my family say, if you got too rich, you're no longer godly. And I didn't even realize my family believed that kind of crap. I love you, but crap. But it was in my brain that it created a ceiling on the inside. And I ended up sabotaging my own self at that spot. Does that make sense? So,
Yes.
and I think because of what we're going through right now with COVID, I think a lot of people are unconsciously creating PTSD around money that's keeping them in that actual, what's that limit, that mindset
Right.
limit.
Right. They limit themselves. But then the second part of it is one of the things that you find is as women, we don't take sufficient risk when it comes to our money.
Good point.
So we'll take risk when it comes to our jobs. We'll take risk when it comes to looking after our families. We'll take risk when it comes to those things. But when it comes to our money, we tend to be very, very conservative. And that's the other part that has kept us back because the money hasn't been growing fast enough or
Yes.
doing enough
Yes.
For us that if an emergency comes up, we run through that money quickly because
That's so true.
1%, 3% is not gonna not gonna go much,
So
even if you have it
true.
for 10, 15 years. So those are two key things that mindset, because we tend to be pretty good at savings, but like we have it in a savings account.
Right?
It's savings as opposed to investing.
Yes, there's a big difference between the two. And that's the other thing I realized is I did, even when COVID hit, I had some money in my savings and I was able to take care of myself for a little bit. But then when the money started to dwindle because no other doors were opening up, you had to rethink. And that's the other piece that made me realize, gosh, if I had really been smart with the money that I had gotten from a particular opportunity, which was like $40,000, I should have taken a piece of that if I had known better and invested it somewhere. And now we've got the opportunity to buy what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and don't ask me all the questions. I know intuitively enough, because I do pay enough attention that's going on, that is a good arm to go in if you find the right one with all the right elements to it. So you got to do your research and your due diligence. Real estate will never go away, but I've been thinking of things like, if I were to invest in a company, I'd invest in something like apartment complexes. I would invest in laundromats. I would invest in like the 99-cent store. So those are places that will probably never go away until we have the apocalypse, if that ever happens. Because
Right.
why?
You want to find needs, fill
there,
needs.
there always be a need, always be a need for those things. So I'm like, all right, that's what I would do. Where can I find that? Because that just makes more sense to do something. Like someone, we were talking about real estate. I said I wouldn't do a house because you only have one person, and if that person decides to act a fool, that stream is now closed up. But an apartment complex, even a small one, you've got multiple sources, or tiny homes or mobile home parks. You've got money coming in every single freaking week, if not every single day in some sort of way. Like, yeah, that's where I would go. So that's what my brain's thinking about for the future.
Yeah. Yep. And those are the types of conversations that women need to have with each other. We don't tend to talk
Partners.
about,
Yeah.
we don't tend to have those talks about what we're doing with our money. We don't talk about opportunities to grow our money. So we need to make those something that we include in our conversations with each other.
So you have in your chapter, you have 7 key areas that we need to pay attention to. I think you just mentioned 2 of them. And then you have, wait, I think I printed your chapter twice. Did I?
It's about balance. What I tried to show in my chapter is that there is an order to how you do things when it comes to money.
Yes.
Because we get so much information. And I think that's what kind of turns people off, because they don't understand it. And so they don't know where to start first.
Yeah.
So they'll say, oh, should I start with crypto? Should I start in stocks? Should I start in, all these different places? And what I used to find when I worked in the investment field, which is one of the reasons I started doing what I do, is that I found that too many people, a majority of people, that came in would know that I need to invest in funds, but they didn't have their foundation set.
Yeah.
So you cannot, I liken it to building a house. The most
Right.
important part of the house is the
The
foundation that the
foundation,
house is going to stand on.
absolutely.
You cannot try and build the walls without a good foundation. You'll get the walls started, but at some point you have to stop
Yes.
and go back and maybe even knock down the walls to fix the foundation.
Yeah.
And when it comes to finances, sometimes people will get stuck there and blame the wall as say the wall's the problem, as opposed to go back and say, nah, it
My
was my
foundation's
foundation.
weak. Yeah.
So
No,
even though
what,
I
what are
used
the
to scream
what
for
are the
what we wanted,
foundations? Not to cut you off, but this is really important because in my spirit, I'm like, someone's going to ask, well, what are the foundations to finances? What are the foundation to finances?
so the foundations are your mindset, is a budget, is an emergency fund, right? And is getting rid of debt. Those are the foundations. Because if you don't control those,
Yeah.
the walls are going to be shaky, the roof's going to be shaky, everything else that goes up around is going to have a problem. Something's going to fall.
Absolutely.
So if you
And they
build
all
this
have to
good,
exist. It can't be one or the other. They all have to exist
right,
cohesively and in conjunction with one another. They have to exist at the same time. With the emergency fund, it used to be 3 months. I think Greg Laurie used to say, not Greg Laurie. Who's the financial guy? Greg
depends
Reed.
on which one, who?
I think it was Greg Reed. No. I could see he looked just like Greg Laurie to me. Dave Ramsey. There you go.
Oh, okay, that's
Dave
the one
Ramsey.
who I was thinking of,
Yes.
but I didn't know.
No, it's Dave Ramsey because Greg Laurie and Dave Ramsey look alike to me. They look alike. That's why my brain went that way. But Dave Ramsey, and he used to say you need at least 3 months. What's the average about now? About 6 months to a year?
I would say 6 months a minimum to 9 to a year, because even finding a new job and that's been like that for I would say almost the last 10 years, because there's been a lot of redundancies that were going on.
Right.
And with the changes with what went on in the financial sector, which impacted everybody, jobs weren't appearing like they used to.
That's very true.
So it gives you comfort to know you don't have to worry about it. Now, the other thing, so there's lots of little things that go with it, because once you have it, you have to position it so that it falls into place. I'm not saying have 6 months in a savings account or a year. It's the way you position it so that if you only have 3 months in a savings account, at the end of the 3 months, the money should be there that you could have started requesting at the beginning of the month, So it's about the way you position things to not only have it, but make sure it works well and works hard for you. You may not need as much as you need in a savings account as you think.
Yes.
Because that initial emergency may be under $1,000. $1,000, $2,000 may handle that. The rest of it should be working harder than a savings account.
Right. And that's what my CPA was trying to get me to understand, that for some reason, I had a block. I had a huge mental limitation and a block there. And I would go, yeah. But I'd leave his office going, I'm really not following, because he would say, you make good money. And then it wasn't till years later that he rephrased it and says that your money's not really growing. It's not building. It's not doing anything, but just keeping you alive.
Right.
And once he said it that way, that's when it started to shift. But by that time, everything was changing in my life.
Right.
So yeah, this is what we need to be thinking about right now.
Right. And the budget is important, because then you know what those needs are. Because some people think, well, I've got $2,000, I should lock the rest of it out for 5 years. Well, that's not going to help if you're unemployed for 6 months, right? So it's about layering it so that it's working as hard as it can. Yeah. But it will meet your needs when you need it.
And this is where I think the phrase work smart and not hard is probably where it came from to some degree. Because too many of us are, especially women, I think we're brilliant and talented, and we give so much and we're very busy, but our busyness is not producing real live results. That's kind of the conversation we're having at the beginning is, you know, here are these women who I think are brilliant and talented, have so much ability, but yet sometimes they don't understand that they're sabotaging themselves because they're not doing the work that needs to be done to get them moving in the right direction that they need to be moving in. And I say that lovingly because I think to some degree, a lot of women just weren't taught that. I was lucky that in a sense, I was taught that from a business perspective. I learned it in school and I learned it working in corporations and in higher education. I had to manage some of this stuff in order for me to be strategic. Thank God, I now have a great deal of love for one of my professors who I hated at the time. He drove me absolutely crazy. Dr. London, love you. If you ever get this, I love you and I thank God for you, because he was the one who constantly pushed strategic planning on not only just for working with an organization, but just my own life. He pushed it through every class, and I had him for 3 years. He made sure. So every single year I kept hearing this. And now, years later, after I've graduated like 15 years ago, and I can say, best thing he had ever done was teaching me how to be strategic. Now I had to learn how to be strategic with money, because that's been the next healing. And I think women are looking for this type of information. And this is what I love about this book is each and every woman in the book gave you actual specific step-by-step keys and strategies that you need to look at that's going to help you get into your power. I gave keys, Deanna gave keys, every single one of them gave you like, here's step 1, here's step 2. From their own experiences. So this is not something they're just telling you to do. This is what they're doing in their own life to help them stay in their power to move it to the next level, which is why at the beginning of the book, you'll even see, I said, this is how you use this book. Read it multiple times, dog ear it, highlight it, go follow the speaker, get connected, because this is what's going to shift you into a higher level of power so that you can actually have the life that you really want, so that you can change your family, community, and the world. Deanna, I know we could talk forever, but I'm so grateful that we've had this conversation. It has been glorious and phenomenal. You always give amazing strategies. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
All right, ladies. So again, our book's coming out on September the 27th. We are so honored and excited to have you get this in your hands so that you can step into your power and live the life I know you were created to have. We love you, we believe in you, and to your unlimited and powerful success. Have a great one. Bye, everybody.